Hello and welcome Facebook Live. This is Conversations with Kara-Leah. My name is Kara-Leah and I'm sitting here with Dani Oravietz. And yeah, we got the last name right. Yeah. So I met Dani online, as you do nowadays. She was part of the Dane Tomas community. Dane Tomas is an amazing spiritual entrepreneur and dude that's dedicated to waking up. And through engaging with him in his coaching program, I connected with Dani. And as it turns out, Dani's now living in Auckland, and we met up about a month ago and had a conversation. And I was like, Dani, you got to come and have a conversation with me on my couch.
So here I am.
So here is Dani, and we're going to be talking about, amongst other things, but we're going to be talking about disidentifying with a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. Welcome, Dani.
Thank you. We love the tagline as well that we just created before because it's a little bit rhyming.
Disidentifying with the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. That definitely rhymes. If you're listening to us and the sound is good, please give us a thumbs up or a heart or some love. That would be awesome. So let's talk about multiple sclerosis. So you have a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis.
Yeah, I do. I had that 3 years ago. Originally, I didn't have. It was actually an interesting story. I was here in New Zealand when I got my first symptoms, so that was 5 years ago. And
how old were you then?
I was 30, so I just turned 30, just finished my psych degree, was kind of on the way to being like a big important doctor in the world, and had that like trajectory in mind. I flew to Poland, which is my dad's country, so my motherland, and went and did that kind of trip of a lifetime. So I was ticking off all this kind of bucket list of mine, and then my first symptom hit at 30.
And what was that? What was the symptom?
That was, it's called optic neuritis. So that's my right eye became blurry and really painful and couldn't see out of it. So it's basically an inflamed optic nerve that is created from the damage that is starting to happen in our nervous system. Because MS affects our nerves, so our brain and our spine. And ultimately, in its kind of, I guess, progressed state and worst situation, can lead to severe disability. So
when you had that symptom of your eye starting to do funny things, did it freak you out?
I just thought, actually, I was in Italy. I just had a big night partying with my Italian friend. And I thought I'd slept with a contact lens in my eye because that's what I used to do sometimes when I'd had a bit to drink, is just go to sleep with my contacts in. So I was like, oh, it's just a contact. And then I couldn't find the contact. It wasn't a contact. And then I actually went to a doctor in Ireland because I was in Italy at the time, so no English. So I waited to go to an eye doctor in Ireland who found out what it was and said to me, you need to go for a scan when you're back in New Zealand because this could be connected to MS.
Wow. So right from that first symptom, he picked up that it was potentially MS.
Yeah. And
when he said that to you, do you remember what that felt like? Did you know what MS was?
I don't think I'd ever really heard of it.
Yeah.
Not heard of it, but never really. It's never crossed my radar.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what it. I knew it was a disease. I just studied psychology, so I knew about all the brain stuff, which is kind of funny, and all the amyloid plaques of Alzheimer's and dementia and all of those sorts of things, but not MS. Yeah. So I think my initial reaction was it's not a thing. It's fine. It's not a thing. I think that's just my default. It's like, it's okay until we know more information. Don't freak out. Just go back to New Zealand, finish your holiday, and then see what happens.
Okay.
And then go for the MRI.
So how long before you went for the MRI? Did you get
straight
on it or
Yeah, straight on it.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. The eye thing, optic neuritis spontaneously recovers after, say, maybe 3 to 4 weeks.
Right.
So it clears itself up and it goes away. So that's good.
Yeah.
As in you've ticked that box kind of thing. They did offer me, that was my first actually introduction to drugs, or the medical model, which was like, we can give you steroids to speed the eye thing up. Do you want to? So that was, I guess, my very first introduction. And that was a moment I was like, no way. Like, I'd already started on a natural health journey at that point.
Right.
And changed my nutrition and my eating, and started to get rid of chemicals in my life, because I'd previously been a hairdresser in my very first career. So being exposed to a lot.
Yeah.
So I was starting to be quite anti anything that wasn't necessary. And I was like, well, if it spontaneously recovers, why would I put like steroids in my body? So I just left it, and then went through the public health system and had an MRI.
And then from that MRI, that's when they gave you a diagnosis?
No, so that's the point where I remember like lying on that MRI, and it was a very pivotal point in my life because my
Is that where you go right into the whole machine?
Yeah. So in this whole tunnel, and they clamp your head with these blocks so that your head can't move because they were scanning my brain. And you're told to like stay really, really still, and then they put the radio on because it makes really strong noises. Makes these really clunking, loud noises. And I just was lying there thinking about my mortality because they're scanning your brain. And I was 30 years old, and I ran through all my bucket list, and I was like, you know what? What if I was dealt a really bad fate right now? Because my friend's dad had not long died from a brain tumour, and so it's kind of brain related, obviously. My thing too. And I was just like, you know, what do I want to achieve if I've got 2 months, 10 months? I didn't know much about MS at the time. That it doesn't like kill you like that or anything. But I was just thinking of these things.
Yeah, it brought it up, right?
Yeah, and I was, you know, head really, really still, tears kind of dribbling from my eyes, and I was thinking, you know what, like I turned 30, I had a big love in my lifetime years ago. I had been to Poland, and I was a really happy girl. I did want to fall in love again. That crossed my mind in the tunnel. I was like, you know what, I want to have another huge love, and I just I don't want to miss out on that. But it was a very big turning point moment. Then when we were in the office talking to the neurologist, I saw the dots on the screen. So lesions show up as like white dots on your brain, which is bits where the myelin or the nerve covering. So it's kind of like an electrical wire, the rubber kind of being gone from it. And all that, like the more of that you have is supposed to correlate with disability.
Right. So then because the nerves themselves begin to degenerate because they don't have the protective covering. And it interrupts the I guess the electrical signals that travel along the wire. It has to like jump and jump and jump, and if it's too disabled, or that's not a good word, but if it's broken up too much, then it can make my arm go numb and me not be able to lift my arm or not be able to lift my foot, or incontinence is something to look out for, etc., etc. So and it can progress to people being in wheelchairs and being completely like. So you're in the office, the neurologist office, and you're looking at the scan of your brain. And you're seeing these
and I can see the dots. And I just finished my degree, so I can look at brains and see dots. My mum sitting next to me, she heard the word lesion and thought it meant tumour. So I was the one.
Yeah, it's all right. Look, we were recording. Keep going because we're back on live
now.
Back
online? Okay, cool. I was the one that comforted her. And this is actually interesting in terms of stuff I know now. But I put my hand on her and I was like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Like, there's nothing to worry about. It's just the dots on the screen. And so at that point in New Zealand, I didn't qualify for a diagnosis because you needed the one symptom, which was my eye, and then the dots on the screen, the lesions. You needed 2 symptoms in New Zealand to have a diagnosis.
And so because you'd had the eye thing overseas, is that what you're saying?
No, it's just because I'd only had one symptom. The lesions and one symptom equals no diagnosis.
So you need the lesions plus 2 symptoms.
Yet, this is where it gets interesting.
Whoa.
At the same time, in Australia, so if I crossed the ditch to Australia, I would have had MS because they only needed one symptom and the lesions.
So it's a technicality.
Pretty much.
It's it's a perspective thing. In New Zealand, you don't have MS. In Australia, you do.
And the interesting thing is New Zealand is a lot more conservative than Australia. So there's pros to that, as in they're a lot less they're a lot less willing to give you drug therapy. Then you can kind of argue why or why not that might be good. There's funding stuff related to that, obviously. But in Australia, all I had to do was move to Australia, and I had the disease.
So you knew that you did quite likely then have MS, even though in New Zealand you weren't.
I was sort of not in denial, and I haven't figured whether it's just me or whether it's my perspective or outlook on life. But I was just like, it's not a thing. It's not going to be a thing for me. I think I decided in that moment that. I remember them saying you can take drug therapy if you want, so it's a choice.
Right.
And I was like, well, why would I if I don't need to? What will you do instead? So that's always my question is like, what's the alternative? and it was, we'll just monitor you with MRIs. And I was like, okay, yep, sweet, let's do that. And then I ended up living in Australia anyway, so that's kind of where the journey progressed.
So then what happened? So you're still 30 now, having had that MRI?
I was 30, yeah.
And so then you moved to Australia.
Yep.
And so now you technically could be diagnosed with MS.
Yep.
What was the next progression of?
Well, I ended up having, how I ended back up in the MRI again, was I had pain in my body, which is actually, it was correlated at the time emotionally and physically. It progressed at the same rate. So I went into a job that I wasn't aligned with. It was interesting because this has re-happened again to me just a month ago. I sat in the very first day of this job, I remember, and I got pain in my hips. And over an 8-month time frame, to kind of cut the story short, the pain moved and progressed every month that I stayed in this job, even though I hated the job. Well, not hated, but was unhappy, and I felt it wasn't in alignment with me. It wasn't true. But I was emotionally stuck. I was just like, I'm here, I can't not be here, I've got to pay rent, etc., etc.
So survival mode.
Total survival mode, total scarcity, total fear. And this pain, the more I was scared, the stronger the pain got. And it moved all the way around my body, around to my back, lower back. And one day I went to stand up from my chair. It was then interrupting me being able to walk. It was horrendous. And
that's
I was
chronic pain.
Yeah, really, really chronic. And I was getting more and more disabled. And I was crying on the train because the trains were packed and I couldn't sit down, and I was in just agony. And then I went to stand up from my chair at work one day, and I couldn't. Like, my legs just gave out. And I was like, what the hell is going on with my body? And I just burst into tears. And that's when the irony of this whole thing is I worked for a radiology company. So they just plugged me back in the MRI.
Right.
And they found a bulged disc in my back. Again, kind of the medical model. I was told you need spinal surgery to fix it.
Right, of course. What level was it?
It was L4, L5.
Ah, that's right. I had my spinal fusion.
And I was told, like, not fusion necessarily, but you need operation. Like, that's the only way. As you'll know. You know
what I find curious, right? So I had a spinal fusion when I was 16. The disc was bulging. And what I worked out much later on, I'm so young, right? I worked out much later on when I was 25 or 26. I read Caroline Miss's book, Anatomy of the Spirit. Yeah, Anatomy of the Spirit. And she talked about the different emotional, mental, underlying reasons for things. And so what I worked out was that my parents divorced when I was 11, and I suppressed my emotional response to that. And so that suppression of emotions, that total suppression down here, is what led to this. This is my theory, right? Is what led to the bulging of the disc, etc. So when you're sharing that, I guess what it makes me wonder is if you were unconsciously suppressing your emotional response to your job that you didn't want to be in, but also possibly to what was happening with the MS. And so I'm intrigued by the fact it's the exact same level.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that at that time, what started to occur was sciatica down my right leg. And then a month ago, the same thing happened down my left leg when I was in the same kind of emotional space. But when I've been exploring it more recently and way more deeply, because it was quite unconscious back then, I just wanted to get out of the pain. So I was just meditating to get rid of it, not because I wanted any sort of awareness. Right. I was like, get it away, get it away. Is I just clocked, like, if my one leg was out of action from the sciatica back then, I had this belief that I couldn't stand on my own 2 feet, or I couldn't have the life I wanted to live without my parents' support. So that's an analogy for not being able to stand on your own 2 feet.
Right.
So it almost like manifested a situation where I literally couldn't stand on my own 2 feet because one leg was like affected.
Yeah. So it's amazing, isn't it? Those connections between our beliefs, our thoughts, our emotions, our physical being, our energetic being.
Yeah.
And then being able to read them and know how to respond.
Yeah. And the other funny thing about this is that sclerosis, the word obviously from multiple sclerosis in Greek, means to harden. And I had been high achieving, pushing myself. That psychology degree I just obtained before the first symptom was actually to heal a broken heart. So I suppressed all my emotions from this first love of my life into my body, or like didn't feel them because I wasn't a feeling person back then, feeling human. I was, but I tried not to be.
Yeah.
I was just like, no feelings. And again, I was trying to meditate things away.
Meditation is escapism.
Yeah, it's totally.
It's a thing.
It's a bypass.
Yeah.
It starts as like, it is. It's just, yeah.
Right. Okay, so you're doing a psychology degree to escape feeling stuff.
Yeah, to escape feeling stuff.
To harden up.
Well, I was a high achiever, so I was just like, if I can get this degree, then people will love me more, aka my parents and the world, because I'll be a successful person.
And we all know the world loves successful people more.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Then I'll have the doctor in front of my title, my name, so that's even more of a tick for the eldest child who got pissed off when her sister came along.
Now I'm a doctor.
Yeah, pretty much. I've been trying to one-up her my whole life. And then, and I shoved all those emotions back in my body and became hard, I guess, to myself.
Yeah.
Self-criticism, perfectionism, not good enough, even the hardening to the emotions. So through this kind of healing process, it's been a lot of like, how can I soften? What would softness want? That's actually been one of my mantras to support MS is, what would softness choose?
What would
softness choose?
What would softness choose? Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I've actually forgotten that recently.
What would softness choose? You know what I love about that is when people ask me what Tantra is, if I take Tantra down to like the simplest, smallest unit, it is simply softening. It's softening in every moment, right? So Tantra seeks out where the tension is.
I put my hand down and I was like, oh yeah.
yeah. So when you're saying that, that reminds me of like a core Tantra practice is to simply soften. All right, so you're at the radiology company, you've been working there for 8 months.
Yep.
You couldn't stand up.
Back in the MRI.
Right.
I went to a neurologist. Oh, another like funny part of the story is that my job was to build relationships with all the doctors, all the neurologists and like neurosurgeons and
You're in
oncologists.
the right place.
Yeah, I was in the right place. So I was just like, back in the MRI for free, yay. And I trusted one of the people that I had met, one of the doctors. I built a good relationship with her. She was a neurologist. So I said, Kay, can you look at my MRI? And what do you know? She does a full health history. She happens to say, my specialty is multiple sclerosis. Why haven't you looked at this for, at that stage it was a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. She's like, have you not had another scan since my first one?
Yeah.
And I was like, no. Actually, what happened was I saw her for my back. She told me I needed surgery. I found that I could physio-rehabilitate it, so I did that instead. And I only found the referral for the MRI later after the rehabilitating of my body, because I was like, I want to walk. And she's like, why haven't you been back? And I said, I've been rehabilitating myself. And I didn't have the spinal surgery.
Yay!
We can do it other ways.
Yeah, it's good when you need it, but you don't always need it.
Yeah. I learned a lot from that process and strengthening and just not, again, it was another like chink in the bank of like, it's not always what the big doctors say you have to do.
Yeah.
Like we have our own power, we have our own choice.
Absolutely.
And we don't often realise we do.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember like the medical profession is so risk adverse. So often what the doctors are telling you is to cover their own butt. They have to take sometimes the most safe, extreme course of action. Yeah. And it's up
they're
to
sort of bound
us.
by it too,
yeah, they're bound by it. Like that's how they operate. And I think once you know that as a consumer, it's funny how we consume health product, healthcare, then you can advocate for yourself. But so many people going into the system, like I didn't know that as a 15-year-old. My mother didn't know that. She wasn't able to advocate for me. It wasn't until I was in the system later on that I realized, I was like, oh, I have the power. I have the choice. I can do my own research. I can take on board what they're offering me. Yeah. But I don't have to go with what they're offering me.
Yeah. And that's important for parents too. Like there's been a lot of, for me, like my parents did this to me, not the MS stuff, but say for example, eating pasta and bread my whole life and being severely gluten intolerant. And it's like, you should have known better, but they didn't. And the parents taking you to the doctor trusts that authority will, take care of you the best.
Yeah. So that second MRI, then what did it show up in terms of progression of MS?
Still no symptoms, so it was exactly the same as years before, but because the diagnostic criteria was different in Australia, I automatically had the disease.
Right.
And so it was straight away, well, you have it, you've got this and you've got this, and you need to be on drug therapy. Like, that's your only option. And so she kind of laid out all the brochures, and she was like, you can choose this one, you can start with self-injectables, which you inject yourself every day or every certain period. That's the lowest risk, or you can go to this higher level. It's more convenient, but it's pretty much like having chemotherapy. And
holy moly.
At that point, I was just like, no, like, why would I do that to my body? I have no symptoms. And she did all the neurological tests and everything, and everything's fine. And I was functioning.
So those drug therapies, once you start those drug therapies, like, because MS is a gradual, progressive, ongoing, chronic,
degenerative
disease, yeah. So once you start, that's it. I imagine once you start the drug therapy,
it's harder to remove yourself, and you do need to do that in a supervised manner for people that follow like protocols that I do, nutritional ones, which have been proven and are studied, etc., and is fronted by this incredible Dr. Terry Wild. Disease was getting worse and worse, and her wheelchair was getting more and more reclined.
So she's a doctor who had
MS. Doctor who had an MS.
Right.
And then she was taking all the drugs, and it was getting worse with the drugs because they're not... Basically, the idea is to slow it down, not to cure it.
Right.
And so the idea is that your immune system's attacking yourself, in short, and all you can do is just take drugs to slow that down, and they suppress your immune system. But they're not questioning the cause. They're not going, what's causing this?
Right.
Is it inflammation? Yeah, of course it is. But what else is it?
So then once you had that diagnosis and you knew you didn't want to do the drug therapy, did you go and start researching other ways to support your health?
Yeah, well, as the universe has it, and I believe this is clearly like my journey, but as the universe has it, it's probably the same for you. Like, you put out a question or an intention, like, what next?
Yeah.
And sometimes it comes from that place of complete surrender and like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, what next? And that was my journey with the back thing and the no surgery, was, what do I do? And then this physio showed up who said, I can rehabilitate that. And it was, I think, that, and I was led to documentaries about self-healing from MS as well. The diet, or this doctor who had changed her diet and now fuels her cells, so she feeds her mitochondria, and through doing that, in 3 months she was out of the wheelchair, and in 5 months she was riding a bike.
Whoa. See, that's evidence-based, right? Because it's like, I mean, even if it's only one person, if she's following that protocol and has that shift. Yeah. And
I was already eating like 90, maybe 80% of that way before my diagnosis. Yeah. So maybe that's why I don't have symptoms now too.
Right, because you're already supporting your body with the diet. Yeah. What about, how did it feel for you emotionally? Like, was it quite, because that's quite a big thing to get a chronic diagnosis, especially in your early 30s. Did it hit you emotionally?
Yeah. I think it hit me more than I probably was willing to admit, because I'm, I guess, more urged to the positivity side of things. I'm very much an advocate for feeling your negative and dark and bad feelings too. However, I've got this like, it's fine, it will work out. Like, also this kind of spiritual type trust as well. And in the bigger plan and the learning from it all as well. And then there was like this soul piece that's like, this is not my path in this lifetime. I don't know why, but I've always had this like, not even like this illness I won't succumb to this illness. It was just like, this is bigger than me. This is not about me getting disabled. So I had this knowing, I have to admit that there's been this knowing forever. And now it's shown to me like, oh, this is why I'm supposed to help people, because well, this is why, because I can help people. However, I think at the time I was a bit in denial, and I didn't like the fear of the doctors, like you talked about before, like, you have to do this, you have to do this. I've got a rebellious streak, so I kind of ran away. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. You say right, I go left. And I think I did, on some level, I did make it mean something to me. And what I do see now is it made it mean things like I'm a bit broken. So like for a love and relationship, things like that. I've always, well, until the last few years, when I dated a man who was like, I know you have MS and I will be with you anyway. That was huge. I didn't realize I was carrying like, I have a disease, so I can't be loved in the way that everyone else can.
Right.
So there was those little kind of meanings that I think subconsciously I took on in different ways.
Yeah.
Like I need to fix myself / heal myself. So I can't be with anyone until that's done. So I created quite a solo journey in many ways from then till now. But that's been needed.
Yeah. And so in terms of work, how did it impact your ability to work and what you do? Because I guess you've kind of figured out that job was not good for you, wasn't aligned. What happened next with work?
Well, that's been a bit of an interesting path because it was a physical, how should I say it? Fatigue was an issue. And this is important kind of for everybody because I now believe if we're in a job that's not right for us, we will be fatigued. So you could say it was MS fatigue. I was finishing my time up in that job. It was an office job, corporate, 40 hours a week, the kind of standard. I didn't fit into that box. I never would have fit into that box. But I put myself into the box, and then trying to do that created fatigue.
Right.
And so I then adopted the belief, like if I ever do that, if I work hard, I will have fatigue or I will get sick.
Right.
So again, like through these challenges, we're always adopting this. If this happens, that will happen.
Right.
And so then I was like, well, I can't work full time anymore. Even for myself, I've carried that on to like, I can't work hard for anything I love. That was another one because my degree was something I loved and I worked hard for something I loved and then I got sick.
Right. So there was that false association between working hard for something you love equals getting sick.
Yeah. Or working hard at all or working long hours at all will make me fatigued and then I can't function and then I'm a victim sort of thing.
Right.
So that has been the biggest journey with work and having a health challenge. Is it might not have even been the MS, it might have just been myself being misaligned, but I connected the two because they were around at the same time. And so then I worked part-time in just an admin job, and then I came across emotional clearing. I'd learnt mindfulness, and that really supported me in transitioning out of that job, and being really present and letting things go. But then my friend started to do this process, Dane's created process, the spiral. So an epic process of shedding all our emotional baggage and our shit and our subconscious conditioning from our childhood. And he started to change in front of my eyes. And then he kind of...
friend did?
Yeah, my friend did.
Yeah, how cool is that?
I know.
When you see someone evolve, it's like,
Yeah. And it was confronting too because I was still stuck in my shit. And he was changing and he was my best friend and I was like, what are you doing? First I was like, I don't want that. You know, when people are doing things that you're not, like, I'm over here doing my mindfulness. I don't need your magic thing over there. And then when he changed enough, I was like, okay, what is this thing you're doing?
Yeah.
And then he actually, at the time, paid for me to do it. Because he's like, I want you to get out of your way. He could see how stuck I still was in all my beliefs. And so I did the process. And
because the spiral's 8 weeks process?
7 sessions.
7,
follows each of the chakras,
right? Yeah. Awesome. So what was that like going through? Because we start at the bottom, doesn't it? You start at the bottom, Muladhara, and then work your way through. What was that like?
It was crazy. I didn't actually know what I was taking on.
Were you doing one a week or were you spacing them out more?
I think I was spacing them out a little bit. But what I realise now is I was doing my physical rehabilitation of my physio, or it was clinical Pilates, to rehabilitate my body physically, and I was doing the emotional releasing work.
Right, the spiral.
So the spiral. And the energetic clearing, any emotional energetic work, as you probably know from yoga, is so complemented by physical practice and it integrates so fast. And so as I was facing all my conditioning around shame and guilt and all the dense, like lower chakra,
those demons of the lower chakra,
like the guilt, it was all the dogma, and I realized and I'd be curious about your like health or your back stuff and the dogma stuff, or the connection between them. I had so many like you shoulds, you have tos, we all do, from my parents, from my family, all the conditioning, and that was has been my biggest barrier to the hardening to myself, is that you have to be like this, and to be loved you have to be like that, and this is success, and no.
Yeah.
And so I was shedding all that and releasing that, as well as physically rehabilitating. So the two were marrying quite well together. But actually I remember dating a guy at the time, and he was like, "Who are you?" Because I was a bit up and down.
Who are you? Well, that's a good question. I'm asking that.
Yeah, and I was like, "I'm deconditioning, leave me alone." No, I didn't know that at the time. Yeah. That's what I was doing. Yeah. I was like, it is a bumpy journey when we are shedding our
and it can go so fast sometimes, like when the layers just like gone, it's like, whoa, that's not me anymore.
Yeah, and that's what the clearing work really does. And what I've actually found a bit of a challenge to keep up with is changing so fast. I don't even know who I am in 24 hours. Yeah, you might know what that's like a bit.
Yeah, I do. So when you went through the spiral, then you were markedly different coming out the other side?
Yeah, well, I just unstuck myself really fast, and the biggest evidence of that was the second session. I was like, I have to train as a practitioner in this. I don't know what it is. I'm just doing it. And I even said to my job at the time, I was like, they wouldn't give me leave, and I was like, I'm going to quit if you don't give me leave, because this is so true to what I need to do. And I'd stayed stuck in a shitty job for 8 months. Like, though the difference was huge.
So you're asking for leave so that you could go and do the spiral training?
Yeah.
And did they give you leave in the end?
Yeah, because I just shifted stuff relating to my power. And I was like so boundaried, so in my power. My self-worth had skyrocketed. So I was like, you know what, I deserve this and I'm worthy of this, and this is what I'm standing for myself. And of course they gave me the leave, because I say it all the time with my clients, is when they express what they want and what they deserve, the world just kind of parts, and the people are like, okay, here you go.
It's amazing that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like that shift that does happen when people start to realize, fuck, I'm worth it and I deserve it, and it's okay that my needs are met.
Yeah. And that's the thing with, I guess, all the lower chakra stuff is safety. And knowing that it's safe to have our needs met. And that's, I think, my most recent journey with shedding the belief of being well, is it's safe to be well.
Interesting.
So that's where people, like, I guess, stumble between, and I'm literally just feeling this right now, I've got goosebumps, stumble between, I think, jumping out of the victim and jumping into the empowering place, and then knowing that they have autonomy and control over their challenge, whether it be health or otherwise, and then maybe even overcoming it to a point that they want to then drop their label of it, which is my process currently, is knowing that they're safe to do that. Because when we're in it, that's our safe zone. It becomes, it's a protective space.
Makes sense, because it does become, I know when I was in my early 20s that having back problems was part of my identity. Yeah. I identified with being someone who had a back problem. And then I noticed I would use it to get out of things I didn't want to do. Yeah. Like it became leverage as such. And I remember noticing that and going, oh, I'm using this. And that was an interesting awareness for me, for sure. So let's talk about that, identifying with the label, because I know that's big for you right now. What does that mean? Like when you were given the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, well done. Did it feel like it became who you were initially? Like it became a part of your identity, or?
Well, no, in what I referred to before around, like, I never woke up in the morning and go, I have this thing. Like, I never did. And I think that's key to me being well and thriving, having no symptoms, is I never woke up and went, oh, here I am again and I've got this disease. But part of your question, okay, so what then happened was, and this is so linked into why it's fascinating, is it's so linked into doing something to get love, whether it's a degree or a successful title or whatever, is it became, if I healed from this other thing, then people would be like, wow, that's impressive. So I started to use MS as like a credential or a card, like I have multiple sclerosis and I'm thriving, or I'm healthy. Even like with men, they might be like, oh, I don't know, I might share with them because I'm very open, and they're like, oh wow, that's amazing, you're so vulnerable, you're so open, we love you more. And so identification became like, I didn't have a doctorate or anything, but like I've got this badge, and I mean we see it everywhere on social media, right? Like everyone's sharing their struggles, like their rags to riches story and their transformation, and it works, as in it's actually a thing.
Yeah,
it's genuine and it's vulnerable, and it's we're not manipulating. But I've realized recently, shiny in my parents' eyes and in your eyes, and that's why I'm sitting on this chat, right? You know, you guys are like, wow, this is amazing. She's overcome this thing. And so it slowly crept in as an identity, as part of me. And I realized, like you said before, I could manipulate it. Like, even though recently I had pain related to sciatica, my part-time job said to me, oh, what's MS like? You know, like, you've got to share your struggles and let us know how we can support you. And it was that moment I was like, I think it's multiple sclerosis. Like, I could wing that. I could, if I wanted to. I mean, I wouldn't, but I could choose to use that as an out continually. And even we moved this couch before, I felt pain in my body, and I thought I could speak up about it, and this is related to the identity. I could say, I've got back pain, but I chose to keep quiet.
But in that choosing to keep quiet, were you honouring your body, though?
And that's the point that I'm up to right now.
Yeah, because
is that how do we disidentify with something? So slowly start to let it not be us.
Yeah.
And not give it energy.
So it doesn't define us, and we don't feed it.
And we don't give it energy by talking about it a lot, like, oh, my back, or oh, my MS, or oh, my, you know, I'm so tired, or someone lately I've been relating with is like, oh, my anxiety, and it's...
That's the first thing, is stop calling it my anxiety. I'm like, call it the anxiety moving through my field, for example. Yeah, I'm aware of that.
The language.
The languaging really, really helps to disidentify, is that when we claim ownership of something, then we're making it part of our identity. And these are questions I've asked myself too, because I've talked a lot, of course, about the experiences I've had of awakening/psychosis. And that was the before and after of my life. Like, there was my life up to before that, and then my life after, and markedly different. Yeah. But the same question of, like, when can I let it go? When does it no longer define me? And I know that publishing my memoir last year felt like I could finally do that. It's like, okay, now it's behind me. It's not really a part of, and yet it is. But I don't have to talk about it all the time anymore. Yeah. And that language shift, I caught myself saying my psychosis last week. I was like, no, the experience of psychosis, which is different. Yeah. Yeah.
The my is, and I think I've never said my MS the whole time, ever. So that could be why the identity hasn't been as strong. It's created patterns, as I've mentioned, but it hasn't been as strong as maybe other people that I hear, and like my, you know, a lot.
So in your work now, so you trained in spiral?
Yeah, in emotional clearing, the technique in general, so we can apply it to anything, not just do the process. So the spiral is like a deep dive process.
So now you work with clients in that way. Helping them to go through the spiral and clear things.
Yeah, and I also now am applying it more to health challenges.
Yeah,
so the stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah. So what are you seeing with clients in terms of identity, or where they're at, or what they need? What are you learning from working with people? What's been exciting you?
There's so much. So much. What's really exciting me is there's a few things. It comes back to the safety thing that you're talking about before. And I'm not like a super experienced, my specialty and my niche isn't trauma work, but I'm fascinated by trauma as a thing in general, because I think people think that you have to be abused or assaulted, or abandoned, big stuff for it to be trauma. But there's so many micro traumas that we can experience, or just trauma, things that we can experience that shape our safety. And then my biggest aha moment with all this stuff and working with people is that, and this is related to our boundaries, is people with health challenges, pretty much all across the board, and this is also based on Dr. Gabor Mate's work, so it's again based on science as well, and what he's found working with patients that have health challenges is that people with health challenges have really rubbish boundaries, and that's usually because they've had a lot of boundary violations as children.
Right.
And this can be little things like your parents not knocking and saying, "Can I come in to your bedroom?" Just barging in. That's like crossing a line. Children, they're like, "Hug Auntie Susan," and they might not want to. So in their body's going no.
Yeah, and they're forced to.
And
do not make your children hug people when they don't want to hug them. Consent, even when they're 3.
Yeah, it's
right?
incredible. And now, living back with my parents more recently, I've witnessed all these boundary violations consistently, and that's meant that, and what it creates in my clients and me, is that we are constantly under threat because our lines are constantly being crossed without our permission or control. So our nervous system and our immune system and our stress response is in overdrive all the time.
Right.
And we have been conditioned from a very young age because we've been told constantly, you're not safe, your needs don't matter, they're not going to be met, your lines will always be overridden.
And then that's internalized. And I'm guessing too, if those subtle boundary violations are happening from people we love, there's this, we don't want to say no, don't, because then we don't receive the love.
Yeah.
So there's this conflation between allowing people to do things with us in order to receive love.
Yeah.
Even when it's really subtle, small things. We're not talking massive boundary violations necessarily.
No.
Yeah.
Even like language, like my mum would say something like, "We'll have the sandwiches." And it's like, but I might want, the milkshake.
Yeah.
And it's that assumed decision or the agreement that parents, they do to take care of their kids. We can understand it at a mind level, but that's still the child not having their own desires even asked about.
Yeah.
And then, as many people watching this will understand, it creates a whole chain of events when we're adults, where we still can't express our desires. We still don't have, rubbish. We still have rubbish boundaries.
Yeah.
So when we clear or release the conditioning around things like our boundaries and our power and feeling safe, feeling supported is another big one. Feeling supported, and one of my favorites, which is sort of definitely health related, but it gets kind of higher up the hierarchy of needs when people are not in the lower stuckness and they're in the space where they're thriving, but they still haven't stepped out into the world with their own gifts because they might have patterns around, like, if I work hard then I'll get sick.
Right.
Is stuff around being seen.
Yeah.
That's a really exciting area for me, because it's like when people are able to, healthy enough to kind of do, fulfill their desires and their dreams and do something of meaning in the world.
You've got to be okay with being seen.
Yeah.
Being seen is a big one for sure.
Yeah.
I've experienced that a lot in the last year or so. I mean, especially publishing my memoir, I went into terror for about a week.
Wow.
Massive terror. Like, it was just like, and it was this deep fear of being seen. And what I've worked out, and the irony in this, right? Like, I'm quite public facing, here I am, I've been doing interviews like this for years, but it's a really sneaky way of putting forth a persona so it looks like I'm being seen, but really I'm hiding.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of worked out. It was like, I'm really good at hiding in plain sight to avoid that fear of being seen, but at the same time really desiring being seen. Like that push-pull of scared to be seen, really need to be seen. And the way that we get stuck in that. Yeah. So fascinating. Yeah. Awesome. So if people want to work with you, and maybe they're going through health challenges, or I know that's not the only people you work with, what offerings do you have right now, and how can people get in touch with you?
Yes, well, I'm really excited about my Facebook group as a stage one. I'm really excited about, and on the topic of being seen, creating a community where it's safe for us to show up as we are at whatever stage people are at in a health challenge. So I've created a Facebook group which can be linked on my social media, so Facebook and Instagram.
Cool.
Danny Aravietz.
I'll put links into the description. So the Facebook group is around navigating health challenges? Or?
It's called Epically Thriving Health.
Epically Thriving. I love the word epic. Epically Thriving Health.
Yeah.
Cool.
And the cool, exciting part about that, and what I really feel important to share is is people have this perception that to be in it, either you have to be thriving, or I'm going to tell you how to thrive, or you have to be all shiny and have it together to be in the group.
Right.
And this is related to kind of what you shared about launching your book as well, is this persona that we put out there that isn't always true. What it actually is a space to be human. And that's really
it's
important.
aspirational, like epically thriving is the aspiration.
Yeah.
Come be human.
Yeah, pretty much be human.
Let's look at what it means to epically thrive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So anyone can join that, even if they don't have a specific health challenge, and just if they're interested in being a human who's epically thriving.
Yeah, it's more health specific, definitely.
Okay, cool.
But it can be like there's people in there that have anxiety, so it's not just physical stuff like an autoimmune disease, or there's people that have fatigue, and it's the same. It's what we've talked about earlier. It's like, is the fatigue actually because your body is tired, or is it tired of being put in a box and you need to leave the relationship or need to leave the job? So it's exploring all the stuff that we've talked about, like underlying kind of patterns.
It's really about learning to listen to the body, isn't it?
Yeah.
Learning to listen to the messages your body is sending and to correctly translate them. And then act on them. It's like, oh, I hear you, body. This is what you're telling me. I'm honouring you. I'm going to respond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the tagline.
Yeah.
I'm going to go write it in the group now.
Perfect. You do that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Danny, thank you so much for joining me on the couch.
It's been fun. It's been amazing. You're welcome.
And if you're watching this, like after the live, please feel free to throw comments, to tag Danny in the comments, etc. And we'll come back on and answer those questions that show up over the next while. Alrighty. Big love to you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Big love to all of you guys too.
Thank
you. Have
you.
an epic Thursday. Thrive.